You know that harmless-looking bubble you might see on a flat roof? Well, it's not just a cosmetic thing. It's actually an early warning sign that could be quietly growing into a major, and I mean really expensive, structural problem. Today, we're going to break down the silent threat of flat roof blistering.
To really get a sense of the risk here, let me tell you a real-world story. A warehouse owner up in Calgary noticed a few small bubbles on his roof. He figured he had time. Just 3 weeks later, some of those small bubbles were 4 feet wide and literally tearing open. That's how fast a minor issue can blow up into a full-blown crisis.
And that brings us to the money. The repair bill for that warehouse? $18,000. I mean, that's a huge expense, right? But here's the kicker. Because he acted when he did, he dodged an $80,000 bill for a full roof replacement. The financial stakes are incredibly high, and believe me, timing is everything.
So, what exactly are we talking about here? Well, a roof blister is just a pocket of trapped air or moisture. The source material uses a perfect analogy. Just think of it like a blister on your hand. The outer layer, in this case the roof membrane, is separating from the structure below. And, just like a blister on your skin, it's a weak spot that's way more likely to fail.
So, where do these blisters even come from? They don't just appear out of nowhere. They're symptoms of deeper problems. Let's play detective and unmask the main culprits behind this kind of costly damage.
So what's actually causing these bubbles to form? It turns out the root cause often traces all the way back to day one, the installation itself. And understanding this is the absolute first step to preventing a disaster down the road.
And here it is, the big one. The number one cause by a long shot is moisture trapped during installation. If the roof deck or the insulation underneath is even a little bit damp when the membrane goes on, that water gets sealed in for good. Then, when the sun heats up the roof, that trapped water turns into vapor, expands, and pushes the membrane up from below. Boom, you've got a blister.
And the real-world cost of this one mistake, it's staggering. The source expert shared a story where his own team had to tear off an entire roof and start over. It cost them $45,000, all because the insulation wasn't perfectly dry. I mean, that's a brutal lesson in getting it right the first time.
Beyond just trapped moisture, a lot of it comes down to just rushing the job. Simple installation mistakes like using adhesive when it's too hot or cold, not letting layers dry, skipping a proper surface cleaning, or trying to beat the rain. All these things create tiny weak spots and air pockets that are pretty much guaranteed to become blisters later on.
This just goes to show you how sensitive the process is. In one case, a single empty coffee cup was left on the deck before a new membrane was installed right over it. Within 2 years, that tiny piece of trash had created a significant blister. It shows that even the smallest shortcut or oversight can have huge consequences.
Of course, installation isn't the only thing to blame. Other factors can create or make blisters worse over time. You've got intense temperature swings, especially on dark roofs that can hit 80 degrees Celsius. That constant expansion and contraction just stresses any weak spots. Poor drainage is another big one. If water sits on your roof for more than 2 days, it's going to find a way in. And finally, sometimes it's just the materials, using incompatible products or just an old membrane that's at the end of its life. So we know what causes them, but what happens if you see a blister and just ignore it? You might think it's not a big deal, but it's not a static problem. It's the start of a destructive cascade of failures.
It all starts kind of subtly. The material at the very top of the blister gets stretched really tight. Day after day, as the sun heats it and the night cools it, this membrane expands and contracts, getting progressively thinner and weaker.
Eventually, that weakened, stretched membrane just can't take the stress anymore, and it gives way. It cracks, tears, or splits right open. And just like that, you have a direct pathway for water to invade your entire roofing system.
Once that blister is open, water pours into the insulation layer. This immediately ruins its ability to insulate, so your heating and cooling bills start to climb. But that's just the start. Now you have a hidden soggy mess trapped right inside your roof.
And from there, the trapped water inevitably makes its way down to the roof deck itself. If the deck is wood, it rots. If it's steel, it rusts. At this point, you're not talking about a simple roof repair anymore. You're looking at major structural damage.
So let's put this all together. What started as a few simple blisters that might have cost a few $1,000s to fix can escalate into a $200,000 problem involving structural engineers and a massive reconstruction project. The cost of inaction is just astronomical.
Okay,
So that's the problem. Let's talk solutions. If you already have blisters, you've got a critical decision to make. Do you repair them, or is it time to replace the whole roof? Let's look at a practical guide to help you decide.
This decision matrix makes the choice a lot clearer. For instance, in scenario 1, a few small blisters, yeah, that's a clear case for repair. But compare that to scenario 2. You still have small blisters, but now there are 10 or more on an older roof. At this point, patching is just throwing good money after bad. Replacement is the smarter move. And if a blister has already split open, that's an emergency. You need to replace that section immediately.
And here's a great rule of thumb to remember, the break-even rule. If the total cost of patching all the individual blisters on your roof is approaching half the cost of a full replacement, just replace it. It's a much better long-term investment, and it actually solves the underlying systemic issue instead of just putting on a bunch of Band-Aids.
Of course, the best strategy is to prevent these issues from ever happening in the first place, so let's look at a simple playbook for blister-proofing your roof. This is all about being proactive to fortify your defenses.
This slide right here is your checklist for accountability. When you're hiring a contractor, ask these 5 questions. If they can't confidently answer yes to using moisture meters, or if they say they'll work no matter the weather, that's a huge red flag. A professional's answers to these questions will tell you everything you need to know about the quality of their work.
This chart perfectly captures the financial logic of prevention. Just look at the wrong vapor retarder row. The prevention cost is $0. It's just a design choice. The failure cost? Over $100,000. Skipping an $800 emergency drain can lead to a $200,000 disaster. It's so obvious. Spending a little bit up front saves you an absolute fortune later. Finally, here is your simple 4-step plan to protect your investment. Inspect your roof twice a year, especially after winter and summer. Keep your drains clear, remove any debris, and take photos with your phone to track any changes. This simple routine is your best defense against getting caught by surprise. So, the crucial point is this. A small blister isn't just a bubble. It's your roof sending you a message, an early warning. The real question is, are you listening before that warning turns into a full-blown, costly disaster?